Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great day so far. It's Thursday, your pre-Friday to your Friday. My name's Hayden, and I have the honor and privilege to be your moderator today. And I'm excited to see how today's topics will assist you and your team in taking not just your SharePoint environment, but your business to the next level. A few things to mention before we jump in. First, you may have noticed that when you all joined, all your mics are muted. So if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, we do encourage you to utilize the QA chat feature that's found in your toolbar, and we'll be able to reply to you in real time. Once the webinar concludes today, we will be moving into a live Q&A session. At that point, we'll allow users to unmute and ask questions to our team. And by the way, that live Q&A, it's not just about what we cover in today's webinar, but pretty much any of your M365 environment questions. But we'll go over that more in detail later. Also, be on the lookout in your emails for when the next webinar will be coming up. It should be coming up here soon. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Michael to give you all a brief message. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Hayden. Hey, everyone. If you've been here and done this with us before, you know what to expect. We move pretty quick through these topics. This isn't salesy or that kind of thing. So you're going to see some new features, some things Microsoft's rolled out. And it's not only what maybe new features, it's also what maybe has changed, or sometimes they're doing some of the design or changes. So it's keeping you up to date, even things that maybe are going away or changing. So we're going to keep you up to date with the Teams, SharePoint, Copilot, the works. As it happens today, we had Dylan kicking us off with authoritative sites for SharePoint and Microsoft Copilot. And he is at the hospital with his wife having a baby. So we're going to push pause on that one and hit that one up next week. Our next webinar. So welcome if this is your first time. As Hayden said, we encourage some Q&A at the end. Doesn't have to be on the topics we're covering. Bring any and all your questions. We've got staff on the call that will do our best to field those for you. So welcome and hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much, Michael. All right, as you can see on your screen right now, we do have a jam-packed schedule today with a wider range of topics. All of them are new topics. And so Ken will be starting us off now with the new enhancements for Entra, Microsoft Entra Access Packages. Katie is then going to be showing us the new modern SharePoint experience. If you've been using SharePoint lately over the last month or so, which I hope you have if you've joined this webinar, you've probably seen some updates to the modern experience. And so Katie's going to kind of walk through some of those updates to show us. Lastly, and certainly not least, Leona will then be teaching us about how OneDrive shortcut management is about to get a whole lot easier. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in on our first topic, the new I'm sorry, we're skipping that one. The new enhancements for Entra, the Entra access packages taught by Ken. Over to you, Ken.
Great, thanks, Hayden. So one of the biggest topics that our larger clients ask us about is permission management. It's a real bugaboo for those people who have, say 1,000 employees. And that's because not only do the staff change out while they're in role, that also change out when they're onboarding and offboarding. And you have 1,000 different applications. You have, God only knows how many SharePoint sites, how many MS Teams sites, how many MS groups and Entra groups that you're trying to manage. And so keeping on top of all of that can really take its toll on the IT staff. So Microsoft has deployed a system that allows the business to govern and to approve access through largely a self-help mechanism. You can see here by the stats that are on the screen that this could be a really costly issue if you don't manage it. This is a governance and a risk area. You need to stay on top of this, whether you have external regulators or not. If you're a smaller company and you don't have that many changes and your architecture is simple, doing it manually works just fine. But when you're a larger enterprise, having these kinds of tools is a real lifesaver. So when you're looking at the concept of an Entra package, you have to think about it through the lens of it being exactly what it says. It's a package. It's a bundle of rights. You can put together something that will grant access to specific applications, predominantly the Microsoft stack of applications, though Microsoft does support certain partnerships such as Salesforce. You then have your groups and your team membership, you have your SharePoint sites, and then you have individual security groups that can be added to this as well. So that package is usually going to be tied to a role. So if you think about the idea of somebody joining your PMO, your project management office, that new PM is going to need access to Microsoft Project. It's going to need access to the PMO site where the portfolio is maintained. It's going to need access to the team where they communicate and collaborate with their fellow PMs, going to need access to a handful of security groups. And instead of having to remember or checklist that manually, go out and check and tie those, you could work with the PMO to set up a catalog object that the PM can either go out and select because they know that they're a new role and they need all those things, so they can select the role of, I'm a new project manager, or their manager on their behalf can go out and kick off the process for them. No matter if it's kicked off by the employee or it's kicked off by the manager, there is a approval step, a governance step that can be applied. That governance step can be multiple layers. So it can go to the manager directly, or go to the manager and the manager's manager, and so on. It can go to multiple people. If you have different areas of control for different application stacks, it can go to different individuals to get that approval. In addition, it has a reminder feature. So you can have the rights terminate. A good use case for that is somebody needs to use an expensive license. Say you have a Power BI license or one of the Excel Visio licenses, the Visio Pro licenses rather, and you want to loan those out because you only have a handful of them. So you want to loan them out on a timed basis and give people a couple of weeks or a month to complete their project and then pull that license back. This tool does have that feature. So you can actually set something up where the tool will allow you to monitor for, like I said, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and then at the end of that time period, it'll auto terminate those rights. Or it can go back to that governance queue and it can confirm, let's say you do this once a quarter or once every 6 months, it can confirm that this staff member still needs the access that they have. In certain industries, healthcare and financial services among them, that's a requirement. You have to check that your staff has the minimum necessary rights to do their job. You're not supposed to over-provision rights, and HIPAA and other laws control that. If you do that, you can get into trouble. Looking at the life cycle of how a request would work, you would have, again, the idea of the user coming out and picking from a request catalog. That's going to service those self-help requests like, I need a temporary Power BI license, or again, a new manager during the hiring process could go out and tag an individual and say, this person needs to have, this set of catalog items applied to them. The approval step will then kick off. The approval step is optional. You don't have to have it. So in the case of the Power BI, it might be a first come, first serve. If a license is available, then it grants it. If not, then it says, sorry, you're out of licenses. It then grants everything. It then has that periodic approval, and then it has a clawback function. The clawback function doesn't have to be there, but it's really good practice, because if you don't get the approval, or if you're setting things up on that time basis, having these things terminate so you don't have these rights just hanging out there is always a good idea. It saves you money and it keeps your risk profile as low as possible. So you do have to be concerned about the licensing for this. It does take enhanced licensing. You have to have the intra-ID governance license. A P2 or an E5 or an E7 license would cover this. So it is a little more expensive, but again, if you're a larger enterprise, this is a beneficial thing for you, because it's going to not only save you time, but it's really going to help you with that compliance activity, and it's going to help you lower your risk profile. And sometimes that's worth its weight in gold, because again, if you think about the stats that were shared on that first slide, this is an extremely costly area. Microsoft's attack surface is quite broad. It gets pummeled daily. It gets pummeled by the minute in terms of being attacked. Most of the time, nobody sees that. You don't even feel the effects of that. But the worst thing that you want is that somehow one of your staff members' credentials got out and now, you become one of those attack vectors. So I think tools like this are fantastic. I've, been in multiple IT roles, and I would have loved to have had this tool when I worked for some of the larger companies that I've worked for. And so with that, I'll hand things back to Hayden.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken. As Ken was talking, a couple use cases that really make sense for this. You got new hires, you're offboarding, some new projects and things of that nature. If you have a salesperson who may need a quick Power BI report and needs a temporary license for a specific client or customer, that's another good use case for it. Or maybe you have a team member who's assisting another team they don't normally assist and they need to jump in to help push that project to the finish line. Some of these temporary access and license may be very beneficial for you in your organization. So that's great. Excited that that's being rolled out. Let's go ahead and jump into our next teaching, which is going to be the new modern SharePoint experience, taught by Katie. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Hayden. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to walk through the new SharePoint experience, what's changing, why it matters, and how it may affect the way that we work day to day. If you've logged into SharePoint recently, you may have noticed that things look a little different. But this isn't just a visual refresh. Microsoft is changing the starting point and the way that we interact with the SharePoint, with the experience centered around 3 ideas: discover, publish, and build. Discover is about making it easier to find relevant information without having to know exactly where something lives. Publish focuses on making things easier for content creators to create and manage the content, with an updated app bar to make things a little more streamlined. And build is where we're going to see one of the biggest shifts. This is with AI becoming much more integrated into SharePoint. And the goal is to help users create sites, pages, and lists, and libraries, and content using natural language rather than having to start from scratch. So when we talk about the new SharePoint experience, I don't want us to think of it as simply SharePoint looking differently. It's really about changing how we find information, publish content, and build solutions. So let's switch over to SharePoint and see what these changes actually look like. So to start, we'll start with the piece that kind of ties this whole new experience together, which is the SharePoint app bar, which is located over here on the side. This is a centralized navigation experience that gives users quick access to the major SharePoint designations. Depending on how your organization is configured, you'll see at the very top the home site, followed by discover, publish, and build. If your organization doesn't have the home site configured, the first icon that you're going to see is discover. So if we go over into the discover and go ahead and click on it, this is really what the new starting point is going to be for SharePoint. It's described by Microsoft as the AI-powered front door. The idea is to reduce the amount of time that users spend searching for things and instead surface all the content that's more personalized and relevant to the individual user. So at the very top, we have the For You section. And this surfaces relevant sites, news, and files. Over on the side, we do also have our quick access for favorite sites and the most recently sites that we viewed. Further down on this page, we have the updates from your coworkers. So such files that have been shared with you or content updated by people that you work with. Down at the bottom, we have recent items. So this is going to make it really easy to pick up where you left off. And you'll see the most recent files, pages, or news posts that you've been working on. For users that have the appropriate Copilot licensing, there's also an AI experience available on this page. For example, if you come up to the recent sites and click these little sparkles, you're going to be able to get some AI actions that help you catch up on site updates, reviewing summaries of files and activity, etc. So the key idea of Discover is, instead of starting with where is the site that I need, we're starting with what information is relevant for me. Next down, we'll go to Publish. So this is really aimed at people who are responsible for creating and communicating information across the organization. Publish brings pages, news posts, and Amplify campaigns, if you have an Amplify license, on one central workspace. Right up here is the jump back in. So if you're working on content and leave it unfinished, Publish is going to surface recently edited drafts so you could quickly continue where you left off. Down here in Save Templates, you're going to be able to create a page, either starting from a saved template on a site, starting from blank, or you could use one of Microsoft's published templates. So you could either click See All to see all the templates that are available. And if you choose one, say we want to use this template, you're then going to be prompted to choose what site you're going to want to add it on. So if you're responsible for adding content to multiple different sites, this is going to make it a lot easier. There's also the recent items table, and this is going to surface the pages and news posts, and if you have the license, campaigns that you've recently touched, published, or have in draft. If you hover over any of the items, you get the quick actions right here. So you could share, copy the link, save a copy, delete, or favorite right from this list. Down at the bottom, you also have an analytics section, and this is going to tell you the unique viewers, total views, and the average time spent on the recently published content without having to leave this page. You could click into one of the cards to get more details on that analytics. So for communicators and content owners, this published page is essentially creating a central workspace for creating, managing, and measuring communications. Lastly, we have the build. So this is where Microsoft is bringing together the creation and management side of SharePoint. From here, users could start building sites, lists, document libraries, and agents through guided experiences. One quick note is that if you see any of these grayed out, it just means that you either don't have a Copilot license or that your organization has turned off site creation, which would gray out the create site. So nothing's broken if it's grayed out, you just don't have access to it. Below that, you have the Own by You. So this is a personalized dashboard of every site, list, library, and agent that you own. You're able to jump right back into recent work, see activity at a glance. And there's analytics as well, right, on this table. So down at the very bottom of the build section is Learn to Build. So this is really just guidance and best practices for Microsoft and the general community. So even if you're not really a SharePoint expert at all, you could start building with confidence. So you're able to really kind of start there. So if we kind of take a step back and look at the experience as a whole, the biggest change isn't simply that SharePoint looks different with the more neutral tones and all of that. Microsoft is creating that new front door and the new navigation model around the three distinct experiences. The Discover, helping users find and return to what matters. Publish, helping communicators create, manage, and measure content. and build, helping users create and manage the SharePoint solutions that support your business. And tying all that together is that new SharePoint app bar with that cleaner visual that you'll see there. So with all of that being said, SharePoint is moving from simply being a place where things live to becoming a more guided experience for discovering, communicating, and building. With all that said, this is the new SharePoint experience, and I'll hand it back over to you, Hayden.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. Yeah, very exciting stuff. One of the most common things we're asked when setting up maybe a hub site for an organization, especially when it comes to navigation, is there a way that this can be more personalized for the end user, right? And although there are target audiencing concepts, those are more group-based, right? Where this is more of a personal navigation, personal dashboard. What is that individual's workload looking like that they need to focus on? So very exciting about that. Just a flag on the field really quick, yellow flag, not red, for IT admin or leadership on calls. If you don't know if your permissions or policies are correct, you may want to focus on it, right? Because if they are able to build sites, you don't want to get into a place where you get site sprawl and things aren't connected to the hub as it needs to be, and it could cause some issues. So this is your hopefully warning prior to any issue that you may have. So check into that, make sure it's good to go, and it's a very exciting feature. So thank you so much for showing that off, Katie. Last but not least, Leona is going to be showing us the new OneDrive shortcut management tools and how organizing your shortcuts are about to get a little easier. Over to you, Leona.
Awesome. Thank you, Hayden. Yep. Today, we're going to be talking about the new shortcuts feature with adding shortcuts to OneDrive. For those who are unfamiliar with what controls that we're talking about, if you were to navigate to one of your document libraries inside of SharePoint, there is a control in the ribbon that says Add Shortcut to OneDrive. Now, when you previously used to click on this button, it would just immediately add a shortcut to your OneDrive, which we can see right here. It says the name of the site that it's on and also the document library that we're kind of having a shortcut to. This allows me to easily kind of engage with content that is existing inside of the SharePoint environment. So maybe these are company documents, but you're somebody who thrives in working in your personal OneDrive, where you create your documents, you work on them, you iterate them, and eventually you move them to the SharePoint environment. This gives you kind of a clean, easy way to be able to do so. So in essence, I always have quick access to this document library. All the content actually still lives in SharePoint. But again, if I'm somebody who thrives in OneDrive, whether that be on the desktop version and or the cloud version, I have quick access to it. Now, kind of a problem that arose was that, hey, unfortunately, whenever you added a shortcut to a document library, it just gets placed amongst the rest of your files and folders inside your OneDrive. So that means if you're somebody who maybe has dozens or hundreds or even thousands of folders, it might be very difficult to discern what is currently, other than the icon, what is my content versus what is the organization's content. And so Microsoft has now developed a new option that allows you to create a shortcuts folder, which we can see on the screen right now with that little blue icon, that allows you to put all of your shortcuts for SharePoint document libraries into one spot so you can consolidate them and again not get confused if this is my content or the organization's. So what we will do now is when you click on this button now, there's a drop-down option. So again, shortcuts is the new control that we'll talk about in just a moment. And then the My Files is what we were used to previously, where it just puts it amongst the rest of the folders and files. So when you click on shortcuts, if it's your very first time, it will create a brand new folder called shortcuts that only shortcuts can kind of go into. So if I clicked on here, we can see that there are shortcuts already inside of this folder. Now, just please be aware also, as of this moment in time, if you already have created a shortcut to a document library, you cannot just hit shortcuts and it will put it in there. Microsoft will indicate it to you to say that, hey, you've already added a shortcut to this document library. You will need to go back into your OneDrive. You will need to hit the remove shortcut button, and then you will need to go back to your document library and hit the shortcut button here. And now if we go back to our files and we click on our shortcuts, we will see our new kind of document library quickly accessible via the shortcuts folder. Also, please be aware you can't just drag and drop them into that folder as well. You will have to or remove a shortcut if you wish to use it. So again, this is very valuable for those who love to exist in your OneDrive and those who maybe kind of migrate content from your OneDrive into SharePoint, and allows you to easily consolidate all that data into a clean UI versus, again, the way that it used to be is just kind of lost in a sea of folders in which it could be very difficult to find out where that content is actually being housed and if it's your content versus the organization's content. So again, please be aware this is a new control that's now available to you guys. Please start using it. For those who have not used this control previously, the add shortcut to OneDrive, please start off with using the shortcuts folder because it will probably save you heartache in the long term as you use more of SharePoint and more of OneDrive. And for those who have been using this for a while, please just be aware you will have to go in and again clean up your old shortcuts and rebuild them again, unfortunately, to have quick access to that shortcuts folder. So with all that being said, again, I hope that you guys find value in this, and I'll pass it back on to you, Hayden.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leona. I'm so glad the OneDrive users are getting a little bit of love from Microsoft. I know it seems like a small change, a small shift, but if you have been working in OneDrive, you understand how monumental this could be to separate out your more personal business documents from the document libraries that are living on SharePoint, and being able to have a quick place to just get to the different site and libraries that you have shortcutted to in one singular place. It's going to be great. Way better navigation. Very exciting. Also, just as a quick note, the thresholds for shortcuts are going up. I believe they were 300,000. They're going up to 1 million now, if not soon, in your tenant. So be on the lookout for that because Microsoft wants to make it a little bit easier for all individuals. Now, that does conclude our learning portion today. I want to say thank you to Leona and all the other presenters for today's presentation. I hope we've been able to spark some new interests for functionality that you and your team can explore. Please be on the lookout in your email for our next webinar. We look forward to learning with you all again soon. Before we segue into our live Q&A section of this webinar, I do want to remind everyone that all the webinar notes, slides, and recordings will be on our learning portal for easy access for everything discussed today for our SharePoint support clients. If for some reason you don't have access and would like to gain access to this learning portal, please reach out to us after the webinar. Our learning portal is where you and your team will not only get the materials from today's webinar, but any future webinar recordings and materials as well. All right. With that said, let's go ahead and segue into our open live and Q&A forum. If you don't plan on staying with us, I want to say thank you again for learning with us today. On the screen, we are showing instructions on how to raise your hand to ask a question to one of our presenters. If you don't feel comfortable raising your hand and coming on with your mic on and unmuted, feel free to still use that QA chat function at the top. We'll be reading some questions there as well. When you raise your hand, your mic will be unmuted and questions will be taken in order of hand raised. And as a quick friendly reminder for this live Q&A, we are encouraging users to ask any questions they have about M365, not just about what was covered in today's webinar. So with that, let's see if anyone has any questions. Oh, we got a hand up. Can someone unmute Sharon for me? Or Shannon? I'm sorry if I misspelled your name.
She should be good now. She might just need to unmute her mic.
Oh, can you unmute your mic, Sharon?
Yes, I can.
There
Perfect.
Hi, Hayden. Yeah, it's
Hi.
Sharon at DHIC. I've got a question about the OneDrive and the shortcuts. Is there any, we've been using them for a while now, thanks to Leona's help to get that set up. And I'm finding periodically that I'll go into one of my folders and I can't see the subfolders or the files. I know they're there because I can see them on SharePoint. Is there anything triggering that to happen. And when I reboot, it all comes back. It's just odd that
Is
it's
that
happening.
just in the browser, or is that in the desktop version of OneDrive?
It's in the desktop version, so File Explorer.
Gotcha. Is that via OneDrive syncs, or is that via the shortcuts?
The shortcuts that we recently set up.
Okay. It's probably just OneDrive struggling to kind of see the content. I don't think there's anything explicitly, especially if you reboot, it's probably more of a connectivity issue, more than anything. Again, if you're really concerned about it, I might suggest open up a ticket with Microsoft, realistically, because again, there should be nothing stopping you from being able to see that content, especially if it's just via the kind of the OneDrive sync type of control that exists with OneDrive and Shortcuts. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not concerned. It's
A
random.
little annoying. Right.
Yeah, it's just annoying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just have to switch around. I'm like, it's okay. It comes back. So, all right. I just thought I'd check.
Yeah, great question. Great question. All right. It looks like we have a question from Dave.
Hey, Hayden. It's
Hey, Dave.
David Mark.
Yeah.
I got a real quick kind of, I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible.
Sure.
We use the OneDrive application, right? And we've been telling our users not to use shortcuts simply because it causes problems when they're in File Explorer and then they go to remove a shortcut, they will delete it instead of going to show more options or whatever and then remove shortcut. We have tried to train on that specifically. Is there anything that you guys could offer that would help us out in that sense?
Yeah, great question. Leona, you want to take that one on too?
I don't know if there is per se like a script or a configuration that can be done. In essence, you're concerned more of like if somebody has the authority to delete records, then presumably they can do like a select all and delete the entirety of a repository, whether that be all the documents with the side of it or the entirety of the repository, because in essence they have the authority to do so naturally.
Right. Yeah, we've had actual instances where they look at the shortcut and they're like, "Oh, I don't want this shortcut anymore." Right click, delete, and it like literally deletes everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is. I can look into it, but I don't have an answer right this second for such control.
I was going to say, Dave, that's a good question. Let us take that offline, and we'll reach out to you with a solution if we can get one for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Microsoft's guidance would be to use retention in a case like that.
Oh, right. Yeah. And they're changing their retention policies as we speak, I'm sure.
Great question, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll follow
that'd be
up
great.
afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to use the chat function if you don't want to unmute, but we'd love to talk to you. Give a few more seconds. All right. I think no more questions on the board. So with that said, thank you all so much for learning with us today. We're going to go ahead and conclude the live Q&A. If you do have questions that come up afterwards, feel free to reach out to us. We're always here to help any way we can. But we'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you.